They made $200,000 a year and they couldn't pay their electric bill. Not because they were careless, not because they were reckless. Marcus had an MBA. Priya had been promoted 3 times in 4 years. They were, by every visible measure, winning, which made what was about to happen so much harder to explain. When the promotion came through, they didn't celebrate quietly. They moved. The new house felt like an arrival. Like finally. Like this is what we've been working toward. The neighborhood had good schools even though they didn't have kids yet. The kitchen had an island. There was a guest room they both knew, without saying it, would mostly exist to impress people. They signed the papers on a Saturday. Went out for sushi after. Neither of them looked at the bill. Why would they? They were making $200,000 a year. Here's the thing. Nobody tells you about a number like that. It feels like armor, like a force field around your life, like you have finally crossed some invisible threshold where money problems happen to other people. They had not crossed that threshold. They had just stopped paying attention. Every decision they made that year made complete sense on its own. The house made sense. They'd been cramped for years. The cars made sense. They were both putting in 60-hour weeks and needed reliability. The furniture made sense. You can't put a Charlotte apartment into a 4-bedroom house and call it a home. The dinners out made sense. The trips made sense. Saying yes when their friends suggested Nashville made sense because these were their people, and life was short and they were doing well. Individually, every single decision was defensible. Together, they were a disaster. They just didn't know it yet. The silence started small. A statement Marcus didn't mention. A balance Priya didn't ask about. Not because they were hiding from each other, because they were hiding from the number. And as long as neither of them said it out loud, it wasn't quite real. That's the thing about financial denial in a high-earning household. It doesn't look like denial. It looks like confidence. It looks like two successful people who aren't stressed about money because successful people aren't supposed to be stressed about money. But behind that, behind the sushi dinners and the weekend trips and the kitchen island, Marcus was intercepting the mail. For 3 months, he had been getting to the credit card statement before Priya did. He hadn't decided to do this. It had just happened. Once, then twice, then it was a habit, and habits don't announce themselves. Then came the layoffs. Marcus wasn't let go, but the bonus, the one he had quietly, privately promised himself would fix everything, was eliminated. He found out on a Wednesday morning in a conference room with 12 other people and a VP who kept saying the word restructuring, like it was a life raft. He sat in the parking garage for 45 minutes after. He didn't call Priya. He drove home, made dinner, asked about her day, and said nothing. He would tell her, just not yet, not tonight. Tonight she seemed happy and the kitchen smelled good, and he needed one more night where everything was still okay. That was in March. He didn't tell her in April either. Priya found out on a Sunday. Wrong piece of mail, wrong moment. The kind of accident that, looking back, feels less like an accident and more like inevitability. She didn't yell. She sat down at the kitchen table and she asked one question. How long? And the number, Marcus said back to her, the real number, the full number, the one he'd been carrying alone for almost a year, landed in the room like something physical. She didn't cry. She didn't leave. She just sat very still, the way people do when they're recalibrating something fundamental about the life they thought they were living. There is a specific kind of shame that lives at the intersection of high income and financial chaos. It's not like ordinary shame, it's layered, because you have spent years believing, genuinely believing, that money problems were a resource problem, that people struggled because they didn't earn enough. And then you become the person who earns enough, and you are still struggling, and you have to sit with the fact that you didn't understand anything at all. Marcus understood it now. Sitting across from his wife at the kitchen table at 11 o'clock on a Sunday night, every excuse he'd rehearsed in the parking garage felt like what it was. Just an excuse. They stayed up until 2 in the morning, writing everything down. Not because it was cathartic, because they were terrified, because the only thing scarier than seeing the number was spending one more month pretending it didn't exist. When they finally put down the pen, something had shifted. Not fixed, not solved, but named. And naming it felt, for the first time in months, like breathing. They decided that night to start over. Honest numbers, honest conversations, a real plan built on what they actually had, not what the number on Marcus's offer letter said they should. For 6 weeks, it worked. And then Priya's mother got sick. Not seriously, they thought at first. A fall, a hospital stay, the kind of thing you fly home for and then return from and life resumes. But life didn't resume. Her mother needed a procedure insurance wouldn't fully cover. There were flights, multiple over multiple months. There was a week Priya couldn't work because she couldn't think straight. And the week after that, where she was physically present in the office but gone in every way that mattered. The medical bills came addressed to her mother, but somehow ended up feeling like they landed directly on Priya's chest. They spent $9,000 in 11 weeks. $9,000 they did not have. The card they had just started paying down, the one that had felt, for one fragile moment, like it was finally moving in the right direction, went back up. Priya sat in their kitchen on a Tuesday night, the same kitchen table, the same chair, and she said something Marcus had never heard from her before. I don't think we're going to get out of this. He didn't argue. He didn't reassure her. He just sat down next to her and stayed there. Because sometimes the most honest thing you can do is not pretend. But here's what they didn't do. They didn't stop the Sunday meetings, even the week of the second worst statement, even the week Priya came home from her mother's and hadn't slept properly in days. They sat down, 20 minutes, the numbers, whatever they were. Not because it felt good, because the silence had already shown them what it cost. And slowly, not dramatically, not all at once, things began to shift. A car they sold, a rate they negotiated down just by making a phone call neither of them wanted to make, a subscription audit on a Sunday afternoon that felt absurd and turned out to matter more than expected. None of it was a breakthrough, all of it was a choice, made again and again and again on mornings when it felt pointless and evenings when it felt impossible. 2 years later, they were out. Not because their income changed, not because they got lucky, because they finally understood something that $200,000 a year had made very easy to avoid understanding. A big income doesn't protect you. Honesty does. And for the first time in their marriage, they weren't performing a financial life. They were actually living one.